Hey everybody, I'm Simmons. This is Philosophy for Where We Find Ourselves, May 3rd, 2020. Today we're going to finish our series on the problem of evil. We're going to look at a sort of anti-response, what are sometimes called anti-theodicies, a rejection of the idea that we should give some sort of justification of God and goodness in the face of evil. I'm going to give you two suggestions for how we might do this. The first I don't think is a genuine anti-theodicy. This is what is called skeptical theism. Now, skeptical theism emerges in many ways in light of the long tradition of negative and apophatic theology that suggests God is infinitely beyond what we could understand. This doesn't represent a real, robust response to the problem of evil, but instead gives us reasons for thinking we're not going to find such a response. There's a lot to recommend this view. In particular, I like the epistemic humility that it tends to cultivate. However, I also find it to be inadequate because it doesn't reject theodicies, it simply pushes a mystery button in relationship to them. Instead of doing the work that says, here's how we make sense of it, or really embracing the anti-theodicy view that this is in fact a bad strategy, what it says is, we can't know, but that's okay. I think ultimately it's a strategy that refuses to bite the bullets that we face. The more robust alternative, an anti-theodicy proper, is the view that actually suggests the very attempt to give theodicies participates in increasing the amount of evil in the world. In other words, when somebody is suffering or in pain, to tell them that God's got this under control and everything happens for a reason ends up making light of the reality of their suffering. Rather than attempting to justify God in the face of evil, this anti-theodicy strategy suggests the problem of evil is simply intractable. It's not something we're going to solve, not because God is so far beyond our understanding like skeptical theism suggests, but simply because evil as such is, as Hannah Arendt would say, radical. It is, like Emmanuel Levinas suggests, useless at the end of the day. There's not some greater good that it's aiming for. Or, as Marilyn Adams claims, it is so horrendous in its quantity and quality that it's not going to be something that is ultimately redemptive in relationship to human life. Maybe the best way to put this is that evil is traumatic. It's a gap in our attempt to make sense. It doesn't allow for a closure of meaning, but instead allows the realities of the human condition to be at some level fundamentally wounded. This vulnerability, this fragility, is not something, though, that I think we need to cover over or need to try to explain away. This is part of who we are, and so on the one hand, this might count in favor of atheism. Where I come down, however, is that it counts in favor of a God who did not think the human condition was something to avoid, but something to invest in so far as possible. I find that really compelling, because instead of it being a God who stands afar and makes sense of this, it is a God who participates in it with us, who is a fellow sufferer with us in the midst of this condition. But this does not mean that none of this has meaning. It simply means that the meaning is not justifying evil, but instead the meaning is made in spite of the radicality of evil itself. This is likely to be unsatisfactory for those of you who want to wrap it up in a neat little bow, but I don't think the hard questions can be wrapped up in that way. Instead, they are persistent precisely because part of meaning making is our continued investment in asking those questions that matter. I genuinely wish there were not so much evil in the world. I wish we were done with this pandemic, but here we are, and I don't think this is somehow part of God's plan. Rather than asking why God didn't do a better job, what we should be asking is what job should we be doing? I think God works with us, and yet I think we have a lot of work to do. I'll see you tomorrow, unless a piano falls on our heads.